it is good as you prepare for your exam to make sure that you understand this area very well, linear programming. We have two methods. When it comes to calculations, we can use either simplex method or we can use a graphical method. You can only use a graphical method if you're dealing with only two variables. That is, either you have X and Y. You cannot use graphical method when you have three variables, let's say X, Y, and Z. No. The moment you find that you have more than two variables, then automatically you must use simplex method. However, with simplex method, we can use it even when we are dealing with two variables. So it means that if examiner is not specific about the method you're supposed to use, then ask yourself, are you dealing with two variables or you're dealing with more than two variables? If you're dealing with two variables, then it's up to you if examiner is not so specific. If you're dealing with two variables, then it's up to you. You can choose to use graphical method or you can choose to use simplex method. But the moment you're dealing with more than two variables, automatically that is simplex method. And for this session, our focus is all about using simplex method. So remember, steps are the same. Whether you're using graphical method or simplex method, there are some steps that are the same. Obviously, you have to first develop what we call linear programming model. That is very key. You have to first develop linear programming model. Our focus is about linear programming. So we are focusing on linear programming, and our focus for now is to use the simplex method. But as I said, you cannot use any method without linear programming model. You must first develop linear programming model. Whether you are using simplex method or graphical method, the first step is to develop linear programming model. And we have steps that we follow when we are developing a linear programming model. Steps followed. While developing linear programming model. Remember, they can ask you this. Theory. You explain the steps that can be followed when developing linear programming model. I gave you those steps, but we can highlight. We have one. Step one, we said we identify and define decision variables. So what is all about this? You are going to analyze the question, then see, as a decision maker or the company, what is their aim? Is it to produce some products? And if they are to produce some products, what are those products? We are trying to identify the focus of this company. Product X is going to produce, let's say, different products, then you cannot keep on using those products. You have to define them. And when we are defining them, we are just simply using unknowns. Let's say you're going to use Y, Z, K to define your variables. That is the meaning of defining. You identify, if you identify the products, then you define those products in terms of unknown. Because you cannot, let's say if they are producing soap, you cannot keep on working using the word soap. No, you have to just use one unknown letter to define that product. Okay? So you identify and define decision variables. That is number one. And in the question, sometimes you find that these variables are defined. Sometimes you find that these variables are defined. So your role is to look through the question and see whether these variables are defined or not. Number two, you have to, once you identify and define decision variables, number two, you can state the objective function. Remember, the objective function can either be to maximize, maximize profits, talk about profits, talk about sometimes we use contribution or use the yield, depending on the question. Okay. So you'll find that either you as the company, you want to maximize profits. That could be your objective at the end of it all. You're asking yourself, how many products can I produce to maximize my profit? And you'll be having the target as a company. If your target, you're saying that I have, let's say, product X and product Y, then what is my target? What am I aiming at? Or on how much do I expect to earn as a profit on product X? How much do I expect to earn on product Y? So here you're trying to lay your strategy, your objective, what you want to achieve. So you'll find that if you want to maximize profit, then you can use any letter you say, or you can call it Z max or N. It is not a must that you use Z, but what is key is that as long as you confirm that you want to maximize profit, then this keyword is very key. If you use K, then you put here max. Tell the examiner that indeed the objective function is to maximize. So I want to maximize what? They will tell you in the question that this company, they expect to generate a profit of, let's say, 400,000 on each product of X. But we want to know the overall profit. So you'll find that we add how much does this company expect to earn on product Y. If they will tell you in the question that maybe they expect to earn 600,000 on product Y. So that's how you're going to be stating your objective function. It can either be to maximize or to minimize, or to minimize. To minimize what? To minimize the costs. So if it is to minimize profits, rather to minimize costs, then here where you have Z, I can call P, I can use P. You just use any letter. You're just trying to state your objective function, okay? I say P mean because I want to minimize. I say P mean is equal to, then you may find that as a company, to produce product X, they want to minimize the cost of, let's say, a certain amount of money. They will tell you that to produce this, to do this, the company expect to incur this amount of costs, like that. You will see the language coming. So you go to that point and pick what they are saying. Okay. So that's about stating your objective function. Step number 3 is to state your constraints. State the constraints. State the constraints. Remember, these constraints are like these are just limiting. These are limiting factors. As a company, you want to produce. As a company, you want to produce product X and Y, but there are some factors that may hinder you. Remember, you want to produce with the aim of achieving your objective. But we are saying that there are some factors that may affect you not to achieve what you want. For example, you may be having materials, find that you don't have enough materials. You have labor hours not enough. Talk about the storage capacity. These are things that may affect you not to achieve your objective. Storage capacity, among others, depending on the what? Depending on the question. Remember, how are you going to identify these constraints? We identify these constraints by looking at what is available. And I recall giving you some technique here, in a way that sometimes it is hard to identify decision variable. Sometimes you find that the question is not clear and you're confused about which one can you define. In a situation where you cannot know what to define, then first identify the constraints. Once you identify the constraints, you'll be in a position to know what are decision variable. And how can you easily identify constraints? You'll be looking for those words I told you. The words like available, words like at least, words like at least, words like at most. Every time you see that word and you're handling inequality question, at that every point you're seeing that word, it means that actually that is your constraint. Try to identify what are they trying to mean. Where there is word available, after this word, there is always a figure. Then ask yourself, which factor is giving you this figure? If they say what is available is, let's say, 200,000, then ask yourself, which factor is giving you that 200,000? That will be your constraint. If they say at least 100 kgs, then ask yourself, which factor is giving you that 200 kgs? That factor will be your constraint. It cannot be decision variable. No. It cannot be this. As long as you see these words, I gave you a lot of lists up to maximum of, then you have minimum of. All those words are trying to call you or to show you that actually what you're dealing with are constraints. So colleagues, don't confuse constraints with decision variables. The moment you mix up, then it will be hard for you to pass this number. Because as you state your constraints, we are trying to formulate the inequality here. Each constraint must help you to formulate an inequality. If you have 4 constraints, it means that you'll be having 4 inequalities. then in the long run, you'll be having 4 equations. But as you state, let's say, your objective function, you see that we don't put any inequality. We just put equal sign. Then once you state your constraints, the last step is to state the non-negativity function. Non-negativity function. Okay. Why are you stating this non-negativity? Just you're trying to say that as I am handling linear programming questions, I don't expect to deal with negatives. So you limit negatives by stating this non-negativity function. Okay. My decision variables should not be below 0. That's why you need to state this non-negativity function. If you have 2 variables, what will be your non-negativity function? The non-negativity function will be x should be greater or equal to 0. It should not be below 0. It can either be 0 or above 0. Okay, y can be greater or equal to what? To 0. But we don't expect what? Negatives. If you have 3 variables, then you also include z should be greater or equal to what? To 0. Or another person, instead of doing all of this, can just say y, then let me say x, y, and z, y and z, all of them should be greater or equal to 0. Instead of doing this, you can also state like this. This can be your non-negativity function. Once you formulate your linear programming model, now you ask yourself, which method am I using to solve this model? Am I using Simplex method or am I using Graphical method? So it means that you need this first. Okay. So with this background, we are going to analyze our questions. Then we start answering. Of course, as we analyze, once we state our linear programming model, for us, our focus is to use Simplex method. I will have another session to talk about graphical method. And the Simplex method, it is not hard, just that people fear it, but it is not hard. It is not hard. You need to keep on practicing more questions. You need to keep on doing more numbers. And as you time yourself, because you realize that some of you don't time yourself as you practice, which is not good. Which is not good. Always ask yourself, if I'm given this question, okay, if I thought I'm in an exam, how many minutes can I take to complete this number? Okay, as you revise, it will help you to manage time even in an exam. So we are going to start with the first question that I sent in the group. Okay, here is our question. Whenever you're given a question, always check on the required part. Before you read the case study, always first know what is the required part. Here the required part, they are telling us that A, we use Simplex method of linear programming, Roman 1, to formulate the initial tableau. You cannot formulate initial tableau when you don't have linear programming model. Are you seeing my screen, colleagues? Someone confirm?
Yes, we are.
Okay, Roman 1, we are told to formulate the initial tableau. Then Roman 2, we are told to interpret the final tableau. 8 marks. Here we are not going to solve. No, we are just formulating and interpreting. We are going to see going forward, you may need it solve. You may find that you have a question that requires you to solve. And when you're solving using Simplex method, we start with initial tableau, working towards getting final tableau. So if they say you interpret the final tableau, it means that if they say you interpret the final tableau, it means that you're given a final tableau in the question. Okay. Part B and Part C, that is not our focus for now. Our focus for now is on Part A. So, how can we formulate the initial tableau? We analyze now the case study. We analyze the case study and see. Now, this question is, you'll find that there are other topics mixed in a case study. Not all the details given in the case study are going to help you to answer part A. No, some paragraphs may help you to answer part B and part C, okay? So your focus as you read the case study is to see which information can help you to actually answer part A. And when you're reading your case study, read through once. Then second time, make sure that you're trying to answer the question. Don't keep on reading the case study. You will waste a lot of time. Because you know the required part, first have the picture of the case study. Then the second time you're reading, make sure that you're noting down. Okay, so they are telling us that Mr. Kayamba bin Ali is known for his successful professional football career at both international and local level. He retired from playing football, professional football in July 2020 to engage into active business when he established Bin Sports Limited, that is BSL, where he is a managing director. Okay? BSL is a manufacturing entity in Uganda and intends to produce. Okay. You see now this paragraph. BSL plans to start with the production of high-demand sports shoes, which includes soccer shoes, basket shoes, and the workout shoes. Something should come into your mind. They plan to start the production of what? High-demand sports shoes. And you have 3 categories. Soccer shoes, Dennis, kindly mute. They are telling us that BSL plans to start the production of high-demand sports shoes, which include soccer shoes, basketball shoes, and workout shoes. So we have 3 categories. And they are telling us that the production of these shoes goes through 2 different processing machines, 1 and 2. Okay? The production of a pair of basketball shoes require now they are trying to give you some information. For you to produce a pair of basketball shoes, remember, basketball shoes is part of what you want to produce. But for you to produce a pair you need 1 hour of machine 1, 1 hour of machine 2, and 1 hour of direct labor. So in your mind, what comes there? You need to produce. It means that you must be having the time for machine 1, machine 2, and also the direct labor. Here we are seeing 3 factors. The production of a pair of soccer shoes requires 1 hour of machine 1. Now they are telling us this is soccer shoes. This is basket. This is basketball shoes. Okay. Then what else? The production of workout shoes. Okay. It will help us going forward. Okay. Then they are telling us that BSL plans to have. That is very key also. BSL plans to have 600 hours, 500 hours, and 300 hours of machine 1, machine 2, and direct labor, respectively, during the month of July 2022. It means that as this company, they don't have another time beyond this. They only have, for machine 1, they only have what? 600 hours. For machine 2, they have only 500 hours. Then direct labor, they have 300 hours. So it means that here they are trying to show you that actually these are constraints. These are constraints. At this point, you must formulate the inequality. And if they say this company plans to have, which inequality can you put here? Colleagues, which inequality can you put here? Are you going to put here greater or equal to? Are you going to put here less or equal to? Which inequality? Who want to try? Which inequality here? They plan to have. Okay. Which inequality are you going to put here before putting, let's say, 600? Because here we are seeing 3 inequalities or 3 equations. The first equation will be relating to machine 1. The second equation, machine 2. Then the third equation, direct labor. But which inequality are you going to indicate? Which inequality? Someone can unmute.
We are going to use less or equal.
Yes.
Someone is saying we are going to use less or equal. They plan to have. All right. Yeah. It means that you cannot, as a company, they don't have time beyond this. This is the only time that is available. This is the only time that is available. So it means that the sign you must use is less or equal to. So it means that as a company, you can use all of these 600 hours, or you can use less hours, but you cannot exceed. Okay? So it means that this paragraph is actually going to help you to formulate your constraints. Okay? Remember, we are following we want to make sure that we get information that is going to help us to come up with linear programming model. At this point, we can tell our constraints. Okay. The MD benchmarked the international procedures of sports shoes on their financial performance when making the budget for the first operational year, beginning 1st July 2022. With the objective of what? Are you seeing this? With the objective of maximizing profit. So it means that as you state your objective function, here the aim is to maximize profit, not to minimize costs. And once you realize that the question is saying you maximize profit, which function are you going to make? Do you have profits in the question or not? Let's continue and see. Below are the budget extracts for the month of July 2022. We have basketball, soccer, and workout too. We have pairs of shoes. We have variable costs. We have contribution. We have net profit. Now, you see this net profit here where you have, remember your objective is to maximize profit and you're given a net profit direct. So it means that this information is the one that is going to help you to make your objective function. Net profit per pair. This company expects how much on every pair of shoe. For basketball shoe, they expect 2,000, rather 20,000. Soccer shoe, they expect to earn 30,000 on every pair of the shoe. Then workout, 25,000. So as you state your objective function, this should be your basis. Okay? Fixed costs incurred, workout expected to. Now, this paragraph is none of our business. This paragraph is going to help you when you're answering part B. But not in this paragraph. That is not our focus. Below is the final table generated. Now, this paragraph also is going to help us to answer part A, Roman 2. The final table generated through computation using a simplex method of linear programming is this one. So this is the final. And we want to interpret. And they are telling us that where P, Q, and R represent. Now, you see colleagues. They are telling us that P, Q, and R represent basketball, soccer, and workout shoes. What does that one mean? It means that they have helped you to identify and they have helped you actually to define the decision variable. Remember your step one, identify and decision variables. Here, examiner has helped you. You have these variables and all these variables are defined. Don't start now bringing in your X and Y, Z. No, use the unknown that is indicated in the question. Okay, so basing on our question, this is March 2022. Question what? Question 5? Okay. So the decision variables here, decision variables are defined. We have P, we have Q, we have also what? R. Okay. We are now answering. P is indicating basketball, then Q, soccer, then R representing workout shoes. Okay, then we can state our objective function. Okay, what is our objective function? Objective function. Objective function, we are told in the question, the aim of this company is to maximize. So I can say Z max is equal to, is equal to what? Z max. We go back, we see whether we are given the profit. We are given the profit, net profit. Remember, as you state your objective function, the first step, you must be having decision variable. That is the first step. Already we have defined basketball, we have defined soccer, we have also defined workout. So it means that what I'm going to do is to say here, I've started with basket. P is representing what? What is this? Basket? Is it representing basket? Basketball?
Yes.
Then Q?
Soccer.
Soccer. Then next, workout. Okay?
Workout.
Perfect. So it means that as I state my objective function, basketball, it is 20. I expect to earn 20,000 on every pair of basket. So I add, for soccer, how much? For soccer, 30,000. Okay. This is R. Then for workout, how much? Workout 25. 25,000. That is R. And all these figures are in shillings. Or another student can say my Z max.
Soccer is Q.
Sorry about that. Soccer. Okay. Another student can say, I just write 20p, then plus 30q, plus 25r. Then I say shillings in 1,000. All of you will be marked right. So you have stated the objective function. Then next, based on our linear programming model steps, step number 3 is to state the constraints. Constraints. Constraints in the question, we have what and what? We have, when you check, you have machine 1, you have machine 2, and then you have direct labor. But recall that you must be guided by your decision variables. You must be guided by your decision variables. Here, this is your P. I can put here P, Q, and R. Okay. Now, they told me when you check in the question, here, this is the paragraph we are dealing with now. They told us that this company plans to have 600 hours, 500 hours, and 300 hours of machine 1. So machine 1 is corresponding with 600 hours. Okay. So here, remember we said the inequality we are supposed to use here is less or equal to. Okay. And then I have here 600 hours. Okay. Then all of them, there is, here we don't have. For machine 2, how many hours? 500. Then direct labor hours, what is available? 300 here. When you 300. So I start analyzing that paragraph very well now. They are telling us the production of a pair of basketball shoes requires 1 hour of machine 1. Basket, remember basket shoes is represented by P. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Production of a pair of basketball shoes. Now, basketball shoes is represented by what? By P. This is column for P. And they are telling us that basketball shoes require 1 hour of machine 1. So where there is machine 1, I put 1. Machine 1 is here. And this is basketball shoes. So I put here 1. Then what else? They are telling us 1 hour of machine 2. 1 hour of machine 2. Still basketball shoe. So this is column for basketballs. I put here 1. Then next, they are telling us what? 1 hour of direct labor. So I also put here 1. Okay. Next, we are done with the basketball shoes. The production of a pair of soccer shoes. Remember, soccer shoes are represented by Q. Requires 1 hour of machine 1. Where there is machine 1, I put 1. So we are handling soccer shoes. And they are telling us that production of a pair of soccer shoes require 1 hour of machine 1. We are done with that. 2 hours of machine 2. So where there is machine 2, I put 2. Okay. Then next, direct labor. What are they telling us? We need how many hours? 2 hours machine 2 and 1 hour of direct here. 1 hour of direct. 1 hour of direct labor hour. So you are done with your soccer shoes. Then R, that is your workout shoes. Production of workout shoes requires 3 hours of machine 1. So where there is machine 1, we put 3. Then here I can put here 3. Next is what? How many hours? 1 hour of machine 2, 1 hour of direct labor. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to put 1 and 1. And these are the only constraints that we have in the question. And we are done with that paragraph. So basing on our steps that we follow while formulating linear programming model, you see that we are actually left with what? With the stating the non-negativity. But after doing this, colleagues, you can now summarize. You say 1. Okay, where there is 1, you cannot say. You just get 1 times P. This will be P plus, now you combine 1 times Q, that is Q, plus 3 times R, that is R. Then you can put this here. You are trying to form the inequality now, combining everything. Because we are told that the machine 1 hour hours a
Abel,
day. Yes, please.
R times 3 is not R, it's 3R.
3 times 3R. Yes, yes. Thank you. Okay. The reason why we are combining colleagues is that if we sum up the time you have used it to produce basketball shoe, the time you have used it to produce soccer shoe, the time you have used it to produce workout, if you combine, that time should be less or equal to this, should not exceed. That's why we are combining. Next is 1 times P, that is P plus 2 times Q, that is 2Q, plus 1 times R, that is R. Okay, less or equal to 500. Then next 1 times P is P plus C plus R plus C plus Q plus R. Okay, is equal to 300. So these are your inequalities. Then finally state your non-negativity function. Non-negativity function. And here you have 3 variables. So non-negativity function should be P, Q, and R. All of them must be greater. All of them must be greater or equal to what? Greater or equal to 0. So you're done with the formulating what? You're done with formulating linear programming model. So from this step, you can go ahead and now clear Roman 1. Roman 1, we have to formulate the initial tableau. You cannot formulate initial tableau, colleagues, when you don't have linear programming model. You cannot. So we can go ahead and formulate initial tableau. How can you formulate?
Okay.
Yes, please.
I wanted to ask, there's something confusing me on the maximization. I
Yes.
thought on our net profit would multiply by the number of pairs. Like for the basketball, we get the 20,000 times the 200,000. Or maybe we are maximizing per pair. Like it's confusing.
Something is confusing you. Let me see what is. Let me go back at the question and I see what you're trying to say. You again repeat the question.
I thought when coming up with the maximization equation, we would get the 20 under basketball would get the 20,000 times the 200 because we're having 200
times. Now, when you do that, it is ideally not correct. The reason is that as you state your objective function, it is based on a unit. It is based on just one unit. It is not based on the overall. Because remember, the aim is to see how many pairs can you produce to maximize the profit. That is, we are actually, what we are trying to find out using this simplex method is to see how many pairs of, let's say, basketball shoes, how many pairs of soccer shoes, how many pairs of workout shoes can this company produce to maximize profit. It means that you cannot rely on this. No. For you to see whether you have achieved the objective, we want to see using Simplex method, actually how many pairs can we produce. So it means that as you state your objective function, it must be based on per. You cannot get now this times 20, no. It will lose meaning. It will lose meaning because at the end I want to know what is actually number of P, what is actually number of Q, what is actually number of R, that how many shoes have I produced to maximize this profit. Just that here you see what we are stating. Understand what we are stating is that, like this one, we are trying to say that the moment you produce P, the pair of basketball shoe, you as a company, you are going to earn how much? 20,000. Just one pair. At this point, we don't know how many pairs. We cannot rely on those pairs given in the question, no. Because we want to see how many pairs have we produced to achieve the objective. We cannot rely on those what? On those pairs given.
Okay.
I don't know whether I have answered you.
Yeah, it's now clear. Thank you.
So every time you're stating this, make sure that it is based on per variable. Per variable. Okay. Where are we? We are trying to formulate initial tabule. And as we formulate initial tabule, we must form the first step is step one. Step one, we are going to introduce the slack variables. Why are you introducing the slack variables? You're introducing these slack variables to remove inequality. That is the reason. And in the question, you are actually given these slack variables. If you are not given slack variables, you have to define. You define slack variables based on your constraints. If you have 4 constraints, we expect you to be having 4 slack variables. If you have 2 constraints, then you'll be having 2 slack variables. If you have 3 slack variables. Like now we have how many constraints based on our question? We have 1, 2, 3. So we expect to be having 3 slack variables. And when you check in the question, A, B, and C represent A, B, and C represent slack variables for machine 1, machine 2, and direct labor. So you define slack variables based on your constraints. So what does this one mean? I am going to again write all this here. I want to remove inequality. Then after writing that, I add what is the slack variable for machine 1, it is A. So I add A. Then once I add A, I will put equal signs. Then I indicate the value, which is 600. I have introduced a slack variable A. And since I have introduced a slack variable A, I can put equal signs. I cannot now again put what? I cannot now again put inequality. And this slack variable you have introduced will help you in the long run to see whether you have a surplus. It will help you to see whether you have surplus at the end. Because we are saying the time available is 600. But it is not a must to use all 600. Sometimes companies use less hours compared to what is available. So if they use 500 hours, it means that the surplus is like your actual Slack variable. You will see in the long run when we are interpreting the what? When we are interpreting the final tableau. The Slack variable helps us to know the surplus. Has the company fully utilized what is available or not? Okay, so here I'm going to add. I add what, colleagues? I add B. Then I put equal signs. What is their value? 500. Okay. Then here I add C. So colleagues, you don't cram. Then here is 600. So these can now be your equations. This is equation 1. This is equation 1. This is equation 2. Then this is equation 3. You have introduced Slack variables. Now it can be easier for you to formulate. Can be easier for you to formulate the what? Step 2. Step 2, we formulate the initial simplex. That is step 2. Okay. We have column 1 as we formulate this table. Column 1 will represent your solution variable. Can just hold on, just do this together. Then here the next column, what you're going to put is the next column. This will be your product variable. Just you can hold on a few minutes. Product variable, these are your decision variables. Remember, decision variables, you have P, you have, then you have Q, you have R. These are your product variables. Then you will, after product variables, you will need Slack. You will need Slack variables. This is how many Slack variables do you have? You have A, you have B, you have C. Then after Slack variables, you'll need another column for solution quantity. So I will put here this first column where you have solution variable. Since it is initial simplex tabulae, what you do is to put here. How are you going to fill this? You're going to put your Slack variables. Put A, put B, put C. Okay. The reason is what? Remember these equations you see here. A is in the equation 1. That's what you have row 1. Row 1 will be represented by actually Slack variable A. Then B Slack variable is in equation 2. C equation 3. That's why you have to just first do like this. Then in the last row, Last row, you will put your objective function. Last row, you will put your objective function. Now, how are you going to fill this? You come back at your equations. Equation 1, where you have P, ask yourself what is the value before P is 1. Okay, then what is the value before Q is also 1. R, what is the value before R is 3. Then what is the value before A is 1. You don't, if something is just A, it is just 1A. You cannot just say write 1A, you just write A only, but the value before A is 1. Then in equation 1, do you have B? No. So you put 0. Then do you have C in equation 1? No, you put here 0. Then solution quantity, what is the value after equal signs? 600. Are we at par, colleagues? Are you getting what I'm trying to do? Some of you. The next equation, you do the same. Here I put 1. Then here I put 2. Then here I put 1. Then do you have A in equation 2? No. Put 0. Here put 0. Do you have B in equation 1? Equation 2? Yes. Put 1. You don't have C in equation 2, then this one will be 0. What is the value after equal signs? 500. Then next last equation, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Then do you have A in equation 3? No, I put 0. Do you have B in equation 3? No. Do you have C in equation 3? Yes. Then what is the value after equal signs? 300. Okay, so that is how you are going to fill this. Then pick your values. Pick your values, your objective, the values on the objective function. Where is your objective function? It is here. I can pick 20. I can pick 20 because 20 is the value before P. 20 here. It is the value before P. Then I pick 30. Then lastly 25. You see that in your objective function, you don't have A, so you put 0, 0, 0. Even solution quantity, you don't have any value there. And colleagues, this will be your objective, rather this will be your initial simplex tablet. That's all. And as you state your initial simplex tablet, if you realize that, colleagues, in the question, let's go back to the question, because they may ask you this next time. You'll be confused. As you state your objective function, rather your initial table, check what you have on the final tablet. If the final tablet is given in the question, check what you have on the final tablet. See the sign that is on the final tablet. See the sign that is on the final tablet. The sign that you have, the sign that is there is negative. So it means that if the sign is negative, it means that you must start with objective. The initial table must start with objective function which has positive values. Then you work towards getting negative values. But if you realize that Z, the final tablet has positive values only, Then as you state your initial tablet, make sure that you start with negative values, because it will mean that the aim is to work towards getting negative, rather positives. If we realize that, let's say, the final tablet, these values were positive, it means that we could change these values here, and we put negative, like that. But the fact that our final tablet in the question has negative values, you cannot start with negative values. Let me hope, colleagues, you have picked what I'm trying to mean. Is it clear, colleagues?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that is your Roman 1. You have formulated your initial simplex tablet. Then Roman 2. So you don't change this because the final tablet has a negative sign on the Z row. You cannot put here negative, negative, negative. No. But if you realize, colleagues, that in an exam, that final tablet has positive values on your last row here, please we start with negative values. Some of you like cramming things. Okay, now we are going to interpret. We are going to interpret. Interpret. Yeah. We are interpreting the final tablet. And this final tablet is given here. This is our final tablet. You need how many marks? 3 marks. Sometimes they can be 5 or 6, depending on question. So how are you going to interpret? This is our final tablet. We start by analyzing what we have here. This is your solution variable. Remember, your aim is to produce basketball shoes, soccer shoes, then workout shoes, so that you can see or you can tell how many shoes you have produced to maximize profit. So what you're going to do as you interpret, you can, because interpreting is just analyzing the table, we can, what we are going to do, we can start with our product variables. Product variables. You see, remember your product variables, like now, your product variables are P. P, we needed to see how many shoes. We need to see Q. We needed to see R. What is the number? PQ, and R. When you check in the question, the final tablet, so when you observe your decision variable, check where you have product variables. You see you don't have P, so it means that P is 0. It means that here P is 0. Then here Q, you have Q. Then you go to your solution quantity and see. You have 200. So it means that Q, the number of shoes are 200. Then R, do you have R? Do you have R colleagues? R how many? R 100. So R is 100. Okay. And it means that the company, this implies what? It means that to achieve their objective at the company, they don't need to actually produce any pair of basketball shoes. All they need is to produce 200 pairs of soccer shoes and 100 pairs of workout shoes, so that they can be in a position to maximize profit. Which profit is this? Maximum profit. Which profit is this? Which profit is this? It is given. The profit is what? Check where on your objective function, check on the solution quantity. 8.5 million. Okay. 8.5 million. $8.5 million. Okay. 8.5. And if you want to prove, you can prove. Just bring here your objective function. This is your objective function. This one. And where there is P, put 0, where there is Q, put 200, where there is R, put 100. So yeah, you're going to get 20 times 0 plus 30 times 200 plus 25 times 100. And see whether you are actually getting 8.5. Do you get 8.5? Remember what you're doing here, the figures are in 1,000. So try to see whether you're use your calculator to see whether you're getting 8.5. Someone to confirm?
Yes, it's 8.5.
Okay, it's 8.5. So what does this one mean? Remember, colleagues, you are a manager. You cannot simply just present this. You can just write something. You can just write something and just to make a conclusion about this. You just write simple. You can just say this company can produce 200 pairs of 200 pairs of soccer shoes and 100 pairs of workout shoes to attain a maximum profit of shillings 8.5 million. You have interpreted, that's enough. Then another thing you need to do is, because interpreting you're just trying to talk about this table. You are just trying to talk about this table. Now you have known how many units, how many products, or how many shoes can be produced to achieve the maximum profit. What else? You can talk about slack variable. Slack variable. Now, when you check the question, do you have unutilized resources? Remember, slack variable represent a surplus, unutilized resources. If you realize that here on your solution variable there is a slack variable, it means that the company did not actually utilize all the resources that were available. You see like here you have A. It means that out of what was available, 100 remained. This A you are seeing, it implies that out of what was available, remember A was representing what? A was representing slack variable. A is representing machine 1. So out of 600, remember machine 1, we had how many hours for machine 1? We had 600. We had 600 here. It means that out of 600, actually the company only utilized 500 and 100 was unutilized. Okay, so what you're going to put here is maybe you can slack variables. You have A how many? 100. Do you have B? B is how many? Do we have B?
No.
We don't have B, we don't have C. So it means that B and C were fully utilized. So B is 0, C is 0. But the implication or the meaning of this is that what was available was actually fully utilized. You don't have the redundant resource. So what you're going to write, because here you can just write also something small and say, here you are talking about A is representing what? Machine 1, okay? You can say machine 1 is a redundant resource. Machine 1 is a redundant resource with the unused or unutilized 100 hours. Just like that. And it means that other resources like direct labor, machine 1, machine 2 were fully utilized. You just write something. Remember, in an exam, colleagues, the presentation of your answers can earn you some marks. Okay. Okay. Next, we are done with unutilized resources or redundant resources, whichever word you want to use. Slack variable can represent surplus, can represent redundant, can indicate unutilized, whatever word you want to use. Okay. Then another thing we can talk about here is what? Can talk about the shadow price. The shadow price, which is yes, please.
I need some clarity on the slack variables. The 100 is the surplus or?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like unutilized. Out of what was available, the company did not use these 100 hours.
They used only 500.
Yes, they only used the 500.
Okay.
But when it comes to machine 2 and direct labor hours, it means that the company fully utilized all the hours that were available. There is no surplus. There is no unutilized time here. That is the reason why you have 00 here. Is it clear?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And then shadow price opportunity. How are you going to interpret this? Now, when you're interpreting shadow prices, before we even interpret, what are you trying to interpret here? We are trying to see, we are trying to see if remember, from what you have identified above, you have unutilized, you have also the resources that were fully utilized. Now, with the shadow price, we are trying to find out if the company can add one scarce resource, how much can they earn? Like now here, we are saying that they have utilized all the resources available. Out here it is 500, they free utilized, 300, they free utilized. So the question is, if they are to add 1 hour, how much can they earn in terms of profit? That is shadow price, or what we call opportunity cost. The fact that they have not added that 1 hour, there is amount of money the company is actually foregoing. And how are you going to know this? You're going to come to your Slack variable column, the final tabular. The final tabular. Okay. And see, you see like A, you don't have anything. A, here, down, you have nothing. I am going to explain why there is 0. Then B, you have 5,000. Then C, you have 20,000. What does this one mean? It means that obviously here, you don't need to add any. It means that here, where you have 0, it actually means that A is not a scarce resource. It means that what was our A? Machine 1 is not a scarce resource. You don't need to add. You don't need to add in a unit, because you still have some units that were not utilized. So you cannot add. You cannot add here a unit. You cannot add any time yet you have what you have not utilized. But when it comes to B, it implies that B is a scarce resource and C is a scarce resource. As long as you find that here you have something, it means that B is your scarce resource and C is your scarce resource. And what does that one imply? It implies that if a company adds just 1 hour, let's say they add just on machine 1, they just add 1 hour, they will be in a position to earn 5,000. If a company adds just one hour as direct labor hour, they will be in a position to earn 20,000. But the fact that they have not added this time, they are foregoing this profit. So what does this one mean? It means that here you can simply say A, which is machine 1 is equal to 0. Then B, which is corresponding to machine 2, is equal to how much? In the question, colleagues, don't copy the negative. The negative is there to confirm that that is your final tabular. But when you're interpreting, you write the figure. It's 5,000. Then see, this is your direct labor. Direct labor hours. Direct labor hour. And you have how much? How much for it? Was it 20?
20,000.
So it is observed that if you have unutilized resources, then no need of adding any other unit. That is the meaning. Because A had, when you observe here, A had some surplus. A had some things, some hours that were unutilized. There is no need of adding a unit. That's why it is 0. But others, B and C, you can add a unit and generate what? Sample. But the fact that the company did not add these units, then they are foregoing this amount of money. So last part I can talk about this. Remember, we didn't produce, we achieved the objective without producing what? P. Now you see there is negative 5,000. What does this one mean? It actually means that if product P is produced, remember we have achieved the objective without producing P. Here we are trying to say that if product P is produced, then the company's profit will decrease by this amount of money. If you go ahead, for you, if as a company, if you go ahead
Wanje. Nachamunyumiza soko mumpe. Soko mumpe.
then in a kind of mute, so we are trying to say that if at the company if you go ahead and produce this product P, then you will end up reducing your profit by this amount of money. Every pair you produce, your profit will decrease by what? By 5. Remember, this 5 is pi. That is the meaning here. You can just also write and say if product P is produced, then the company's profit will decrease by shillings 5,000. And you know the reason. Because as you try to produce this product P, you're going to again incur. You need resources. You need to pay workers. So in the long run, you're going to end up what? Reducing your profits you would actually earn without producing this product. We are saying you can actually achieve your objective without producing this product P. But for you, if you go ahead and produce that product, then your profit will reduce by that amount of money. And that's how you're going to always interpret your final tablet. What is these questions can appear again? These questions can appear again. And these are free marks that you see here, I take a lot of time explaining, but in an exam, you can actually use like 10 minutes. I take a lot of time to explain just here, but because I know some of you, it is just starting from scratch. Okay, that's all about this question. Unless if you have I don't want you to fail any question about interpretation of the final tableau. Okay. Okay. Any question, colleagues? Okay, then if there is no question, can go to the next one. Okay. The next question, August 2023. August 2023.
I can't see the question.
You can't see the question. What are you seeing? Okay. What about now?
Yeah, I can see now.
The first question we are handling had 8 marks overall, A and B, but now they are 12 marks. So you need to be active. Okay, let's analyze our case study. This company deals in landscaping and production of various concrete products. The concrete products produced include pavers, cabestones, and U-shaped culverts. Okay, MCL's clientele is based in Mbarara City and the surrounding districts. Okay, how many products are you seeing here? One, these are products. Okay. Okay. This company is currently facing a low sales turnover due to limitation of material supplies, coupled with poor communication and customer care. And you see the reason why they are giving you this is because of last part. The poor communication process has already caused operation efficiencies. Okay. MCL produces all products in batches. Okay. These are units now. These are not kilograms, these are not what, but in batches. These are not pairs. The raw materials for these concrete products include, remember, colleagues, as you read, now you know that raw materials are part of your constraints. At this point, you should be knowing that raw materials, labor hours, storage capacity, all those things are always your constraints. Because as you produce, you need those things. And sometimes those things are not enough. So let's continue. We have four what? 4 raw materials for you to produce these products. You need cement, you need stone dust, you need lime, you need sand. The following materials are used to produce each batch of respective products. So these are products, these are materials. Okay. Cement, stone dust, lime, and sand are purchased at shillings 40,000 per bag, shillings 5,000 per bag, shillings 35,000 per bag, and shillings 50,000 per heap, respectively. Okay. Remember, you always incur cost of raw materials. For you to get those raw materials, you incur the cost. And here they are giving you the cost. For you to purchase a cement, you're going to incur 40,000 per bag. purchase stones dust, you're going to incur 5,000 per bag. Rim, 35,000 per bag. Then sand, 50,000 per hip. Okay. The other variable production costs per batch amounts to shillings 3.3 million attributed to each product. Remember, we have 3 products: pavers, capstones, and U-shaped culverts. Okay, but in a ratio of 1 to 1 to 1. Okay, the batch of pavers, capstones, and U-shaped culverts is sold at shillings. Now, this is the selling price per batch, because they are saying the batch of. So this means that here what you're given is per batch. If you sell a batch of pavers, then each batch will be at this amount of money. If you sell capstones, each batch will be at this amount of money. And U-shaped culverts will be at this amount of money. And now at this point, you should be knowing where they are taking you now. Remember, you always need objective function. You always need objective function. Objective function can be in terms of costs, can be in terms of profit. At this point, we don't know whether their aim is to maximize profit. We don't know whether their aim is to minimize what? Costs. We are trying to interpret. Okay. Sometimes profit is not direct. Sometimes contribution is not direct. Okay, here they are telling us that. Okay, here, before we go to the next. MCL can only access. This is the word you need. This one is very key. This one. Very, very key. This company can only access. This is where you are going to put your inequality. This is a limiting factor. You can only access 12,000 bags of cement, 20,000 bags of stone dust, and 22,000 bags of rim per month. You cannot access above that. So the inequality you're going to use here, colleagues, is what? Less or equal to. Is it clear, colleagues? Remember, cement is part of your raw material. Stone dust is part of your raw material. Rim is part of your raw material. Here there is this word, sand is always readily available. Now, this is where most people mess up. If they say a resource is readily available, that resource can never be a limiting factor. How? It is always readily available. It means that this cannot be a limiting factor. So as you state your constraints, we don't expect this to appear anywhere as your constraint. It is always readily available. And you realize that actually you cannot even formulate an equation for sand. Remember, sand was part of our raw materials. But when you check this paragraph, you actually even see that you have cement, you have stone dust, you have rim, but you don't have sand. You don't have anything corresponding to sand. It means you cannot attach inequality anywhere when it comes to sand. The reason is this sand is readily available and cannot be a limiting factor. You will exclude that as you state your constraints. But they will give you information relating to sand. And you waste your time saying that the question has error. Yet the information is clear here. Sand is always readily available. It cannot be a limiting factor. Something can be a limiting factor where you can attach an inequality. If you can attach an inequality factor, okay? Here they are telling us that CPA, Chipanga, a consultant statistician, was engaged to advise this company's director on optimum production mix that maximizes contribution. Now, this is where you will get your objective function. This is a CPA engaged to advise this company's director on optimum production mix. They want to, the director wants to know how many batches can actually be produced. This is production mix. How many batches of pavers, curbstones, and U-shaped culverts can be produced to maximize contribution. Okay, he used the Simplex method to come up with the final tableau. Now you are given the final tableau. In the question, they have defined very well for you P, K, and U to represent the number of batches of paper, capstones, and U-shaped curve. Colleagues, you see that questions repeat. Questions actually repeat, but they can just twist the language. There is no difference between this question and the question we have discussed. So here they have defined for you, the decision variables. Now, next questions, you will find that the decision variables are not defined, but the same concept. So this is the so these are decision variables. Okay. We can state objective function. Are you seeing my screen? Workbook? Someone to confirm?
Yes, we are saying it.
Objective function. Objective function, here we are to maximize contribution. Okay, basing on our question. Even here, they tried to define C represents contribution in thousands of shillings. So don't start bringing in your Z, your P. They have told you C represents contribution. So it means that as you state your objective function, it should be C max. You cannot say Z. You cannot say K. They have defined contribution is equal to do we have contribution? We don't. At this point, you don't know the contribution. You don't know the contribution. You have to look for contribution. Because the last question we had proved clear, was clear, given, but here the contribution is not given. So you need to do a working and look for the contribution. So working, you can now leave the space and do a working next somewhere. But me here, I can do a working. Maybe let me put here workings. We need a contribution. How do you get contribution, colleagues? You know contribution. Contribution is equal to sales minus variable costs. So it means that when you're doing this, since we always know that when we are stating objective function, we always base on per unit. We always base on per unit. So it means that as you state as you look for contribution, you're trying to just get unity, just to make your life easier. You're trying to get unit contribution, which is the same as unit selling price, minus unity variable costs. Okay, since I want to make sure that my contribution is based on per. And in the question, we have different products that are sold. We have pavers. Okay. Here you can put first column details. Pavers, what else? What else? What is our next word? Cobblestone, okay. Okay, then U-shaped curve. Can put here cobblestones. Then I can put here U-shaped curves. Okay. Okay. I need what? I can say that my amounts are in shillings, but 1,000. I can keep 3 zeros. Okay. Or you want we don't keep 3 zeros. Okay. Remember, I am trying to find what is my unit contribution. And I know that I need the unit selling price. Unit selling price. So the question is, do you have unit selling price for pavers? In the question, do we have? They are telling us that the batch of pavers, cobblestones, and U-shaped curves is sold at. So you have the selling price. You have the selling price. So I can, colleagues, I think, yeah, you can. For you, I don't know, but me, it is easier to use X, to use this. It is easier, but in your book, you can keep 3 zeros. Then cobblestones, how much? Cobblestones 4.45. Okay. And then U-shaped, how much? U-shaped
4.46.
4.6. Okay. That is our unit selling price. Do you have unit variable cost? Unit variable. Unit variable the variable cost. Do you have, remember variable costs here? You need to include all variable costs, starting from raw materials, direct labor, other variable costs, all variable costs, we include them here. So we analyze and see what are variable costs in the question. The variable costs in the question are actually the raw materials. You have raw materials. We have cost of raw materials. You can list now, like now you have what and what? You have cement. What else? Cement, stone dust. What else?
Lime.
You cannot actually produce pavers minus sand. However, mud sand is not a limiting factor, but it is part of raw materials you will need as a company. So as you do your workings also, we include sand. Okay. Okay. For cement, produce pavers, you need 10 bags of cement, but each bag of cement is 5,000. Are you saying that? Each bag of cement is 40,000. Yeah, here. This is cement corresponding with 40. So we are going to get 40,000 times 10. Here we get 40,000 times 10, which is this one. What about so it will take time. For cobblestones, get 10 times 40, the same amount of money. Yeah. Here it will be the same money. Then U-shaped, you need how many bags of cement to produce U-shaped culverts? 20 bags of cement, but each bag of cement is at 40,000. So you get 20 times 40. 20 times 40. Next, we go to stone dust. What are we told? To produce pavers, how many bags do you need for stone dust? 10. Okay. But each bag of stone dust costs 5,000. So you get 10 times 5, which is 15. Here it will be 10 times 5,000, which is 15. Then to produce cobblestones, you need how many bags of stone dust? You need the 20. 20 times 5,000. Yeah, you need 20 times 5,000. Then it produces U-shaped culverts. You need how many bags of stone dust? 10. Okay, so it is 10 times 5,000, which is 50,000. Lim. Okay, what we are going to do is what? For you to produce pavers, you need how many bags? 20. 20 times how much? Lime is 35,000. So you get 20 times 35,000. Okay. There is 20 times 35,000. Then next, for you to produce curbstones, for you to produce curbstones, you need 10 bags of lime, and each bag is 35. 10 times 35. Okay. Then lastly is what? Lastly is what? Also the same, 10. 10 times 35. Okay. Which is the same figure. Lastly, sand. For it to produce pavers, a batch of pavers, you need this 10 times 50. So we are going to get 50. Here it is 50 times 50,000. Okay, next is what? How many? 45. Next, 45. Here we are getting 45 times 50,000. Then next is what? 40 times 50,000. So you have your raw materials. Do we have any other variable cost in the question? Eh?
Yes.
They are telling us that other variable costs per batch. Okay. This is also a variable cost. Okay. And they are telling us the cost is how much? They are telling us that other variable cost per batch amount to shillings attributed to each product. Remember, we have 3 products, but in the ratio of this is the overall amount of money. But if you want to attribute, if you want to distribute or to allocate to each product, we base on this ratio. So if you want to know the amount for paver, you get 1 out of total ratio, which is 3 times this amount of money. So for pavers, we are getting 1 out of 3 times 3.3 million. It will be the same since the ratio is the same. Okay. It will be the same amount of money. Because if you add, you must get the overall, that is 3.3. Do we have any other? Oh, that's all. Okay, I think these are variable costs in the question.
Pardon?
Pardon on what?
Other variable production.
Other variable, okay. You see in the question, they told us that the other variable production costs per batch amount to shillings 3.3 million. This is the overall amount of money. But they are telling us that attributed to each product in a ratio of 1:1:1. So if you want to know the amount of other variable production cost for each product, you base on this ratio. Remember, we have pavers, we have cabestones, we have U-shaped culverts. Now, for pavers, how are you going to get the amount as other variable production cost? You get 1. This is the ratio, the first ratio for pavers, 1 over the total ratio. Total ratio, you get 1 plus 1 plus 1. So total ratio is 3. So if I get 1 over 3 and I multiply by this amount of money, I will be in a position to get 1.1. And you do the same here, because the ratio is 1:1:1. Even here it is 1 out of 3 times 3.3 million. Even here it is 1 out of 3 times 3.3 million. Is it clear? Okay, so that's all our other variable costs. Okay, that's all about our other variable costs. I can get contribution, unit contribution, or I call contribution per batch, because that's what I need. I need a contribution per batch. I need a contribution per batch. How can we get, colleagues? Remember, this is our formula. So we are getting, so in your books, it means that these values you get must be in a bracket. Or me, I can decide first to get what we call total variable cost per batch. Total variable cost per batch. I first add all the variable costs separate. I get from here up to here, I add. Okay. If you get this plus this plus this plus this plus this, you get this. Okay. Now what I have here is variable cost per batch. Then what I have here is the unit selling price. I can call it selling price per batch. Make it uniform. Okay. So you can get contribution per batch. How do you get contribution per batch? You get your selling price per batch minus your variable cost per batch. You do the same here. Selling price per batch minus variable cost per batch. Even here. That's That's our contribution per batch, and that's what we need here. Okay, so it implies that this company, remember, pavers, this is your K. Is it K or P? This is P. This is P. This is K. Then lastly is U. So it means that you need you will be earning this amount of money on every batch of what pavers you produce. So you can write here to 210,000 P plus how much? 250,000 K plus how much? The last figure is how much?
160.
160 U. And this amount of money and shillings. Okay. Yeah. And that is your objective function. If you want to keep 3 zeros, you just write 10P. But in an exam, you choose one. Don't. And keeping 3 zeros can save your time. Don't write this and again you go ahead and do this. No, choose one. Otherwise, you'll be wasting your time for nothing. So this is shillings in 1,000. Okay. Next, we formulate here we put here our constraints. Constraints. Remember our constraints, we have what and what? We have cement. We have stone dust. We have lime. We said sand is not our constraint since it is always available here. It is not a limiting factor. And which inequality are we using? The company can only access. So this is the only resource available. The sign you're going to use is less or equal to. So here you can put K, no, P, I put K, I put L, no, I put U. The constraint we are using is less or equal. Okay, less or equal to. Cement, how many are available? Cement, 12 bags. 12 bags, okay? 12 bags. Those are the ones that are available. These are bags. What about stone dust? How many bags?
20,000.
Okay. 20,000. What about lime?
22,000.
20,000. Okay. All of these are bags.
Yeah.
Okay, now we start analyzing. We start analyzing. These are the bags. These are the bags you need. These are bags. So pavers, where you have paver column for pavers, you just copy and put all of this. 10, 10, 20 column for pavers. This is 10, 10, 20. 10 for cement, 10 for stone dust, and 20 for lime. Okay. Okay, for cobblestones, you do the same 20, rather 10, 20, 10. Okay, 10, 20, 10. 10, 20, 10. Is it?
Yes.
Lastly, for U-shaped, 10, 20, 10, 10. We are not including sand. Okay, so it is 20, 10, 10. 20, 10, 10. Once you're here, things become very easy. Summarize now. Summary of this. You add 10 times P, it is 10P, plus 10K plus 20U. This should be this. We do the same for others. 10P plus 20K plus 10U. We do the same. This is 20P plus 10K plus 10U. Then you bring your non-negativity. You have stated your constraints. Now bring your non-negativity. Non-negativity, you have P, you have K, you have what? U. All should be greater or equal to 0. Then finally go and formulate the table. Now go ahead and formulate table. I believe now you can handle, isn't it? Same steps. Since you have the model, remember the first step is to introduce like a variable, like the way we did here. After formulating our linear programming model, this one, we had to do this. Step 1, introduce like a variable. See whether in the question Slack variables are defined. If Slack variables are not defined, define based on your constraints. You see in the question, Slack variables are what? Are defined here. These are Slack variables now. For cement, stone dust, and lime. You do the same and formulate them like this. And go ahead and interpret the same concepts. Is it clear? Are you going to handle?
Yes.
Now I wanted to interpret it.
Yes.
I believe you can handle this. Okay? And that's enough for now, I think, for today. Isn't it, colleagues?
Thank you.